Welcome back to Super Sentai Review, episode number 54. And this I'm discussing episodes 35 to 43. You're thinking, that's 9 episodes, Nick. Can you remember what happened in those episodes? Yes, I can. 35 is basically all about a guy who really wants Denshi Pink to be his apprentice so she could be next princess of weaving. She turns him down and goes, "Oh yeah, there's a woman already there." I'm like, okay, does this guy clearly not have security? And she volunteers to be his apprentice, and he's like so happy. He gets to relax, and then it turns out that this woman is actually a Vader monster. Yep, a Vader monster. What number is she, you might ask? Oh, and here's something interesting. The Queen's measures are 38, 38, 38. And this is actually quite hilarious. The fact that when they take her measurements, it's like, okay, they measure her chest, her waist, and she's like very happy with that, but she's not happy with her hip size. She's not happy with that because, well, women tend to be very itchy, very antsy about their hips. From what I'm seeing fiction, and it's kind of like that in real life. Hips basically are one thing about women that they tend to think more popular about them than, let's say, their chest or their face. They love their hips. That's how it's fiction. Well, that's how it is. American fiction. Do people in American fiction talk about? Oh, let's guess exactly how big a woman's breast size is. Not really, no. Women don't usually talk about that here at all. They usually talk about guys, not about their chest size. That's women in Japan do that. Oh, and the monster is actually Monster 34 in episode 35. Yep. It's a pretty interesting episode. I can at least get hands to that. 36. This one is by far one of the most interesting ones to date. Yes. Because this episode is noteworthy for the final appearance of the original dog who played IC. Why? Because the dog died during filming. So they placed him with a slightly different dog. This one was a lot more fluffy because I noticed this in later episodes. He looks a little bit different, but appearance-wise, it doesn't look that much different. Just that it looks slightly different. And we could say that, well, IC got an upgrade. And this one's all about a dog, and well, Denzi Yellow was kidnapped because they want to find out where, because Queen Hedra wants to turn Tokyo, one of her many times she wants to do is turn to a city of death, but she fails. Yep, and the monster this one is the Necrollo. Yes, which is a cat monster. Yes, a cat monster. Does it play a role in the episode? Barely. You want to focus on a dog than it does the cat. And here's something really weird though. The dog has no encounter with the cat monster. Yeah, and they do poke fun of the fact it's a cat. Well, not during the episode, not until they get to the giant monster fight, where they have Denzi, the Denzi fighter use Denzi ball like, oh, look at this, get the cat chasing around. I thought it was so funny, the fact that, Yep. By far, that had one of the most interesting fights, but the plot of this one, it's like, well, it's a retread of an old episode, so partially anyways. Yeah, but the only setup of this episode is the death of, well, the original IC. 37 is the start of a new direction for the series, that 14 episodes after this episode aired, this thing would end. 14 episodes later. 37 is the debut of Demon King Barekti. I think it's even pronounced his name here. Yeah, he actually previously appeared in, I think it was just in the previous season as like a one-shot monster. So they bring it back here. This guy says, they say he's bringing up calamity. They don't bring up very much. They bring up the fact he's an emissary of hell, which you would think Demon King. You might think he's a high-level official. Not really. Just a nickname for him. He's just basically a frickin' hitman. Now, if you want to know what the guy looks like, that's him. Yep, that's him. Yeah. Like, he basically is not associated with Vader. Not at the start of it. At the end of it, he is. Yeah, he basically just takes on Denzi Rangers, he wounds like a lot of them, except for Denzi Red. He doesn't injure him at all, surprisingly. Of course, they're the ones being attacked. Not random people like a lot of the time. Previous episodes. Oh no, this guy came to Earth to attack Denzi Rangers. It's happened a little bit later until he breaks into the Vader castle, where he proceeds to beat the living crap out of the Dustlers, even throw them to several different equipment, including the monster making machine. And he ends up really getting a fight with General Hiroda, and also he does something really stupid that Queen Heather tells him, don't do that. What does he do? He takes one of the Vader monster eggs and he eats the monster. And she's like, don't do that again. He's like, fine. But he mentions this. He has not eaten in 50 years. And you're probably thinking, why is he eating 50 years? Because he's been sleeping. Wandering in space 50 years. And then he was basically he sniffed. Like, what is that? That's Denzi blood. I need to go to Earth and kill some Denzis. Yeah, because he hates the Denzis for some reason, even though that technically he's not the monster who destroyed Planet Denzi. It was one of the early Beta monsters who did that. And so he wants to take up Denzi Rangers, and he does. Well, Denzi Red calls him out, and then of course the other Rangers, some of them, majority of them are healed, except for Denzi Pink, who was actually the more severely injured, though she's mostly healed. And here's the thing. They have battle with him in Hell Valley, which this has popped up a couple times in Super Sentai. We go. Though it's typical Super Sentai, because I think it's probably cheaper for them to shoot out in, like, let's say, a quarry, or at least a valley. Than doing it actually. They probably, from what I can tell, they very rarely have monster fights take place in the city. The only thing close to is maybe an industrial district, but that's simply it. So, they end up taking him on. They throw a Denzi boomerang at him, and they bomb him giant size. And they use Denzi's sword, like they use the Moon Slash, and the guy stops to make him the first ever person to actually take on Denzi Fighter and survive the slash. He catches the sword, and he gets out to a certain point. It's like, that's enough. And he shrinks down, and he goes back to Vader HQ, where he proceeds to take a bottle, which, by the way, this bottle does pop up in later episodes, which apparently this is actually alcohol. This is booze. Like, why does he keep it? Like, when in the world that they come to this particular pedestal? Don't know. Where did he get the damn thing? Because it appears as though he doesn't really travel in a spaceship. He just basically flies on his own, apparently. And from what I can tell, he spends the next several episodes just hanging out in Vader Cast. Like the very next episode, what's the first thing you see him do? He's eating. Oh yeah, and by the way, when we first introduced him, like his introduction scene to Queen Hedra, like, oh, you mean like so beautiful. And then the very next episode calls her an old hag. I should point out, though, that the actress playing Queen Hedra is only 42. And she looks actually fantastic for a woman her age. For someone who's 42, she looks really good. And I'm like, why would you call her an old hag? That's dumb. If she was in her 60s, that's something else. But this woman's 42. Oh, and he also hits on one of the monsters, and later in episode 43, he actually hits on this female monster. Well, he invites to have some booze. She's like, no, thank you. So he decides to stick around. I gotta say, for a debut episode, they did a great job introducing him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the very next episode, and this is a very interesting one per se, okay, we have where various people are disappearing, and they're taken to this other dimension, and we see one of the devices, and they're basically kidnapped to be experimented on. One of the devices just happens to be And I saw this if I look at on the Wiki site. That's the monster making machine from Battle Fever J that Echo's used. And here's something I thought was really neat though. When Denzi Blue got himself into that world, like, and they had him basically go to that particular room, he's like, "Oh crap, I do not want to go in that damn thing because I've been to the thing before." Because, well, this is the same actor from Battle Fever J, even though it's a different character, even though it's the same personality. Which I thought that was a nice touch on the part of the people who actually made this episode, to have the actor who plays Denzi Blue, and this is Kenja Oba, who actually saw this thing before in the previous Super Sentai. He's like, "I'm not going to the damn thing. I like the fact you brought the thing back, but do not put me in the damn thing. I did not like being in there." That's probably what happened, but yeah. And then, of course, he destroys the damn thing just like he did in the previous Super Sentai. Like, he's probably by far the only person to destroy the same device in two separate Sentai, which I thought that was so fun. And this is all thanks in part to a little boy who disappears, who's looking for his father, who actually disappears before his eyes, and he turns out to be the actual hero. And of course, they defeat the monster in this episode. Yeah, which is the Kemmler, who is the 36th monster. Yeah, one thing I should point out though, when of course the Demon King shows up, it's the first and only episode to not have a Vader monster. It was a mention of a Vader monster. Don't know who this monster was, but yeah. So our next episode is about ninja stuff. Actually no. This is one of those curse episodes. It's okay. We have various people being manipulated. Though the scene itself, like, okay, so apparently the monster is dressed like a member of the KKK. I am not kidding about that. For some strange reason, I don't know why this is, apparently they decided to have this monster dressed like a member of the KKK. It's by far one of the most baffling things. That they do with this particular thing. Yeah. One of the most baffling things, and as far as I can tell, there's no explained reason why the heck he decided to dress this way for, aside from the fact he's a villain. Yep. But out of these episodes, this one was more weaker episodes. This particular stuff is not fun. It's not a very good episode per se. Champion's Enemy, a Denzi Red episode. This is heavily about boxing. Yes. And the monster is called Paracoror. Yes. And he does have a human guise. He popped up a couple times. Like, he basically appearance-wise, he kind of looks like this guy looks like Junkyard Dog. I mean, he's got the same, aside from the fact the skin color is exactly the same, he basically has got the same pants he's basically known for wearing. I know about the pants because I've seen pictures of Junkyard Dog. And also, he looks like the same physical, he also the same physique that Junkyard Dog did. If you don't know who Junkyard Dog was, he was a wrestler from the 1980s to about the early 1990s. A very popular wrestler who actually was inducted to WWE Hall of Fame, I think like back in the late 90s, I think it was. I mean, I've never seen any of his matches, but I've heard his promos. His promos he was a really good promo from what I heard. And he was a bit, from what I read online, and also, this was something also that was quite interesting about him. He was a big star in Mid-South Championship Wrestling, the company that was owned by the late, I think he's still alive, Cowboy Bill Watts. He owned it. He practically made Junkyard Dog a star. I mean, appearance-wise, he looks exactly like him. I mean, even though his face under a mask, per se, but yeah. I thought that was quite interesting. The fact that I'm a human guy and he's a freaking boxer who cheats. Yes. This monster has got a freaking projector on his head, and he's called Prick Keller. Yeah. Yeah, and this is the guy who actually. This is something quite interesting about him. This guy was seen in all of the opening title sequences for the series. Yep, he was seen in every one, and yeah, it's something though. They bring a guy who was initially seen in the flashback in the opening title sequence, and they bring him in for an actual episode. Now, why is this Denshi Red episode? Well, the reason is because one of his friends, who basically he looked after, he treated them like their actual brothers because apparently he saved them from a Vader attack. When the heck this was has never been explained. They don't really say when the heck this Vader attack happened. It happened. So the guy who's the old friend, he actually would appear in Gogo Black, and Gogo B, and also Dynamite. Yeah, that's something really interesting. Though they would do this, they would have characters, you have actors who guest star as a one-shot character, who actually would later come back as a featured character in the very next Super Sentai. Well, in the case this one, the next two, playing the same color. Yes. By far, a really good episode, and one of those rare times where you see General Halo outside of his costume. And this is all about like underground fight ring. I like the fact this was a boxing episode because you don't get many boxing episodes in the series. 41 is by far, it's got to be one of the most well-written episodes of the series. And it has a similar feeling to the movie. Especially since they have one scene where they have the Denshi fighter, their Megazord, piloted by IC. While they're basically trying to fight other people on the ground and do a rescue of Denshi Yellow, which I thought that was so cool. And this is a good action-packed episode. By far, not only writing-wise, but pacing, this one was so freaking good. And they're trying to find out where Denziman is. Yeah, one of the rare times they actually try to do that. The very next episode is basically this. A ninja possesses one of the students. Now, the student who gets possessed in this episode is a guy who previously appeared in the previous Super Sentai, Badger J. It's Masaru. Yep, he actually comes back. Well, the actor does, playing a completely different character. He gets possessed, does very bad things, and at one point it looked like he set fire in a tire yard, and the policewoman tried to arrest him, but of course Denshi Pink talked her out of it, and then she gets possessed by the monster, and then she's brought to what you think is Denshi Land, but turns out it's actually a fake, which I'm like, that's ingenious on the part of Denshi Rangers. Good job for you guys. And of course, they defeat the ninja by the very end. So I thought one of the most interesting ones. Oh yeah, and also, I think it was in the second episode, I believe, was that Demon King appeared in, where he actually insulted the Vader monsters. Yes, he called them weak, and they always get killed by the Denshi Rangers, which that's true. It's interesting though. We actually have a character who just showed up, and he's poking fun of the show. Like, wow, that's quite something. 43 is a fun episode. Yes. How fun is this episode? Well, let's see. This is all focused on Denshi Pink unintentionally. And this is also the start of something there's actually stock footage in this episode played in the film Gao Ranger vs. Super Sentai. Because in this episode, she adapts various disguises in order to avoid the monsters episode who Demon King hits on. I mean, she gets herself a nun, a woman swings a katana, wears a komodo. Let's see, apparently this woman, of course, they mentioned this also in the boxing episode, that apparently Queen Hendra's birthday is coming up. And they mentioned how old she is. She's 7,600 years old. And I'm thinking, what? 7,600? I'm like, wow, that's... And just a few episodes back, they mentioned this. Yeah, 7,600 years old. She doesn't look a day over 40. Probably because she's an alien. So we have various pageant winners being kidnapped, and these titles are so weird. We have like Miss Autumn, Miss Bubbles, so Miss Ha Hulu, and Chico was kidnapped too because she won Miss Metro Police. And the reason for this because the monster was to kidnap these people, pin them to crosses like they're butterflies. Heck, it's even pointed out that Macheco's like, we're not butterflies. And of course, shut your, silence you. Yeah, second time in these 10 episodes that we poke fun at the premise. Well, of the episode, not the whole damn series. Yeah, by far, one of the most, like I said, one of the most funnest episodes of the entire run. Yeah. And get this. As episode 43, there's only 8 more episodes to go. Yeah, only 8 more episodes left to go for the entirety of Denziman. Yeah, only 8 to go. There is a slight possibility I could finish up tonight. It's possible. It's nothing says I can't. Though I have to do 2 reviews. Like the first one I do be episodes 44 to 47. And then, of course, 48 to 51. Yep. So, looks like I finished up in 56 episodes instead of 57. 1 episode less. Not bad. But, pretty good episodes. But, no one can deny, episode 39 is by far the weakest episode of this whole batch. Yeah. It's not a very good episode. No, it isn't. Though it does feature people who appear in Kamen Rider. That's one thing quite nice about it. Mm-hmm. I forgot to mention this. There's one episode we actually see the actress who plays Queen Hedra actually appear as herself for like one scene. Which you're probably thinking, really? Yes, really. She actually does do that for some strange reason. I'm not really sure why she guest stars herself, but she did. Yep. But yeah, that's it for this particular review. Stay tuned for my next review, which will be more Super Sentai. Okay? Thanks video. Bye.